Welcome to the Author Roundup. This special segment of the Book Connection show features up-and-coming indie authors who sit down with us and talk about their recently released books. Join us as we chat with our next guest author. Welcome to Author Roundup. I am joined by a very special guest and author, Wei Kwan. PMP is an engineer by training with experience in design with a U.S. patent and manufacturing. He has over 15 years of experience in project management doing new product introduction, plant transfer, and new factory setup. He has conducted training in project management since 2012 and received his PMP certification in 2014. Hi, Wei. How are you today?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
Very good. Well, the subject matter sounds pretty exciting. Thank you for being here. Can you describe and tell us more about your book, Simple Project Management for Noobs to Pros?
Okay, so the book is about project management, as the title suggests. So one of the things that is crazy about the industry is that project management, whenever people talk about it, is typically introduced at the senior college level.
Okay.
So it doesn't really make sense to me because project management is absolutely essential, even for the high school student. And like the book says, for noobs, if you
Right.
know what needs to be done, you pretty much can do almost anything. So that is the reason
Okay.
why I wanted to write a book so that don't do it just for college seniors or professional engineers or people who are already supposed to know project management, but I wanted to do something for the high school student, the
Okay.
college freshman, the college junior who really, really wanted to see what they can do. So
Right.
that's the whole purpose of it.
Okay. And so what inspired you to actually write a book? Did you feel that there wasn't any sort of specific book like this that you had seen, or was there really nothing like for beginners about project management? What inspired you to actually like write and publish a book?
Okay, so first of all, it's almost like a legacy.
Yeah.
So I have been teaching the subject for 20 since 2012. So that's more than 10 years.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I wanted to do is that, you know, and after after teaching the subject for that many years, I wanted to have a continuity. That means that subject or whatever that I have done gets to be continued so that more people, when they join the company,
Yeah.
they will learn about the project. And not only that, but I asked the question, is it better that this knowledge be expanded to other folks as well, not
Yeah.
just the people within my company, but
Hmm.
everybody else? And so I started working. So the material is already there,
Okay.
honed after 10 years. I've done many, many revisions
Hmm.
because every time you conduct a course and every time you ask the question, is there any questions?
Yeah.
Once in a while, you get questions that stumped you. And you just said, huh, good question. I have no idea I have no idea
Yeah.
what the answer is. So over time, what happened is that I incorporated all those difficult questions
Yeah.
into the book.
Okay.
So that's one of the things. So it is not so much that there is no such book in of project management, but I can show you.
Oh, yes.
For project management, they give you something like this. It
Yeah.
is 500 pages. This is nuts. And they ask you to read the entire book before they ask you to do project. It's like, who wants to read a 500-page book?
Right.
So one of the things that I teach in and here's the funny thing. About 10 years ago, or no, 15 years ago, when I started doing project management, everybody is given the chance to attend a project management class, and it's usually 5 days.
Okay.
These days, if I want to say I wanted to conduct a course that is 5 days,
Yeah.
most managers will say no. It's like I can't let my engineer
Because
attend a
it's too
class for
long.
5 days
Right.
because
Yeah.
I have work for him to do. Can you
Yeah.
finish 2 days? And that's what I did. So in 2 days, obviously, you have to summarize most of the things in a very, very compact form. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm doing in my book. So
Right.
you have seen the 500-page book.
Yes.
This is
A
a
lot
slightly
easier.
over 100. So rather than telling stories, telling
Okay.
everybody, I ask questions. I've
Okay.
asked questions about this. If you're able to answer, great. Move on from there. Don't have to read too many stories. So
Gotcha.
that's basically the inspiration why I wanted to do the book.
Okay, so that is the difference between like a more like a textbook about project management
Mhm.
versus yours is like stories and stuff. So there's like, oh, like scenarios like that.
Yeah,
Okay,
yes.
gotcha.
So
Okay, so
I'll
that,
ask different questions, and then once you're able, and those questions are not difficult. You just
yeah,
basically answer the question, and then you move on.
right.
So another thing that is kind of interesting because if you go to academia, they will tell stories of people who worked in Boeing, people who work in many traditional companies. If you tell that to a young person,
Yeah.
the first thing that was like, I don't want to work in Boeing. That doesn't excite me. That
Yeah.
doesn't motivate me. I want to work in crypto. I want to work in stuff that is exciting. I don't want to join old man fixing stuff. So that's the reason. So obviously, I don't have any scenarios like that. I don't have stories of, you know, people my dad's age doing that. So I ask questions, straightforward questions, saying that, what is this? What is this? And if I can answer it, great. Write it down and move on. So the book is compact and we'll go and we'll move forward from there.
Right. Okay, so yeah, your book seems more like modernized and with
Mhm.
the times versus it makes me think of like old like training videos that you would watch like when you're hired at work that's not super updated. So yeah,
Oh,
that's cool.
yes. Yes.
That's cool that you offer something that's like updated. Okay, we live in this time where scenarios are completely different. So
Mhm.
that's great. So as you mentioned, project management is often seen as daunting for beginners. What are some common misconceptions about project management that you aim to debunk in this book?
Okay. So two things. Number one is that one of the things that I do introduce very early in the book is
Mhm.
that many projects fail.
Okay.
So everybody is surprised because I introduce it. So in my class that I conduct, the first morning, I will start to tell people, you know something, sad to tell you that your project will likely fail because that is the industry standard. If
Mhm.
you have data from McKinsey, you have data from Boston Consulting, they will absolutely tell you
Mhm.
70% of all projects fail. So that's one of the things. It's almost like watching an episode of American Idol. You have one episode where you have all those people who just do badly, but they believe they can actually sing well.
Yeah.
So it's something like that. So for project management, I actually tell them straight away, it is not easy. You actually have to put in the work because more often than not, your project will fail.
Mhm.
However, you need to follow the guidelines. When I ask you a question, when the book asks you a question, you have to
Mhm.
answer it truthfully, get the result, and then move on from there. And if you follow the guidelines, you are almost, I wouldn't say guaranteed, but there is a higher chance of you achieving the 30% success rate that most projects are falling into. So that is where I want to give the key takeaway is that it's not easy. It
Yeah.
is hard. So, but if you follow the guidelines, maybe that is the reason why that motivates people in academia to write a 500-page book. They actually think that, if you write a 500-page book, I give you sufficient examples, maybe you can do well. Nah, that's
Mhm.
not how it goes.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So your book is, from what I gathered, is based on the project management of book
book
of
of knowledge.
knowledge. Yeah.
Yes.
So how do you simplify its processes for those who are new to project management?
So the project management, I think it's not a book of knowledge, it's body of knowledge.
Oh,
So the
body of
project
knowledge.
management body
Right.
of knowledge is a 700-page book. And
Oh my
obviously,
goodness.
yes, it's crazy. One of the things that we actually have to do for the exam is we have to memorize a 700-page book. Yes,
Oh my gosh.
trust me,
That's
it's not fun.
wild.
Not fun. Don't do it if you don't have to. So one of the things that the project management body of knowledge is it has a lot of examples, a
Okay.
lot of key ingredients. However, what I did is take those that are important. So I will, of course, go through the IPE the initiation, the planning, the monitor and controlling the execution, and then, of course, the closing. So all this I will go through, but I will pinpoint certain portions that is not really required when you
Mhm.
actually have to do a project. Obviously, when you manage a project that is $5 million, that has a $5 million project budget, you will do it differently versus something where you only have
Yeah.
2,000.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So because it's a simple project management, I am not expecting you to have $5 million worth of budget to play with. So I
Mhm.
am assuming maybe you have 5,000, maybe you have 10,000, maybe you have 100,000 if you're going to college. So maybe that is the money that you have to work with. But
Mhm.
so with that kind of money, you probably don't need to do quite a lot of things that a 5 million project will do. So that
Mhm.
is the reason I said, you can do it, you can still follow, but of course, if you really, really do need, you really do have that money, yeah, please go for the 500 to 700 page book.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I love how like realistic you are about it and how, yeah, it makes sense that if you have different budgets, then you're going to treat it differently and you're
Mhm.
acknowledging that. So, yeah, that's really interesting. So, let's talk about so once you're in your career and you're starting like a project. So, let's just talk about what are the key steps someone should focus on starting a project from your book to ensure success without feeling overwhelmed by like complex methodologies?
The first thing that we always do, I will always tell the people, the first thing is figure out what it is that you really, really want.
Okay.
In most cases, in the business circles, they call it a business case.
Okay.
Because if you have a solid business case, most likely, and you have people backing you up to do
Mhm.
it, of course, for example, if you're going to college, everybody say, okay, I think I want to study this for college. And here's the funny thing, if you go to college, there's a lot of people who actually switch majors
Yeah.
halfway down the street. On the second year, the third year,
Yeah.
some will even switch majors on their fourth year. And then it boils down to the question, do you really think about it when you started?
Yeah.
And half the time, people said, no, I didn't. I just thought that I will be good at it, or I thought I will have fun doing it. So that's one of the things. And the same thing applies to project management. You actually need to have a compelling reason why you want to do this. It's the same question that is being asked at during American Idol.
Mhm.
Randy Jackson will always ask, why are you doing this? Do you really know what you're doing? Things like that before they embark on their next journey. So
Right.
it's the same rule applies for project management. If you know what you want to do and you have people who actually tells you that, you know what, I think you'll be good at it. And of course, that person who tells you to do, it better not be your parents because parents
Yeah.
always support the kids. So
Obviously. Yeah.
ask from a few guys, ask from your manager who is an honest, and they'll tell you if your idea sucks, it sucks.
Yeah.
There's no two-way about doing it. So once you have that, then you have people who is able to support you, then the journey actually gets easier as you go along doing it because every single thing that you're doing reinforce the fact that, you know what, this is something good that I'm doing. And
Mhm.
then you get motivated along the way because
Yeah.
everything that you're doing basically supports your business case and saying, there is every time I do this week, maybe when I started off, it is not so, the going is not so great. But as you go along, things will actually get better
Yeah.
because you uncover more things and you improve along the way.
Yeah. I think that just rings true to being realistic, right? Like when you go into, like you mentioned, college, a lot of people change courses and they're not really serious about what they're
Mhm.
doing. And
Mhm.
then once you go into the workforce, it's completely different work, right? Where you have to be realistic and you have
Yes.
to be told maybe hard things that you don't want to be told, and project management, conducting a project is, like there's a responsibility to it. So I think it's great that you point that out as, honing in on a goal is important, and the responsibility of being a project manager is important and serious, I
Mhm.
guess, compared to,
Yes.
being in college. So your book emphasizes practicality over credentials like the PMP or a master's in project management. Can you share how you balance offering actionable steps for beginners while also like providing a foundation for those who may want to pursue more formal training or certifications later?
Okay. So the way I conduct the the way I conduct the course and the way I write the book is that it follows all the principles for the PMP
Okay.
examination. So one of the things as you go, so assuming that you have done several projects, not
Okay.
just one, not just two. One of the requirements for getting the PMP certification is you will need to show at least 3 years to 5 years of project management experience. Many of
Oh.
them above a certain budget, maybe 1 million, 5 million kind of budget. So
Mm-hmm.
as you apply for the PMP, there will be a questionnaire coming from the Project Management Institute to ask you, what have you done?
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, what answers that you will provide to PMI is exactly what I laid out. So if you did planning, oh, this is what I did during the planning stage. If you did monitoring and if you did execution, these are the things I did. I conducted audit, I conducted closing, I conducted all these things. And basically, what you do is you put down all the things that you have done in your project into that questionnaire coming from PMI. And
Mm-hmm.
once you submit, usually what will happen is they will say yes, because I use the same exact principles. That's what I did, the
Okay.
same exact methods when you apply to sit for the exam from PMI.
Okay.
So it is a stepping stone. That's why I think one of the things I said, this is a stepping stone to the PMI because you can use, if you follow the guidelines faithfully, you will be able to say, okay, I've done this, 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 and then you put it in the questionnaire and you can click submit for the PMI examination.
Okay. Okay. So yes, I am learning a lot of things right now, and I'm very excited about learning about this. But for people listening and watching, what does PMP and PMI stand for?
Okay, so PMI is the Project Management Institute.
Okay.
PMP is the Project Management Professional.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
if you go into Google, there is an entire page telling you that that is the next frontier, that there will be jobs available. In fact, even after I gotten my PMP certification,
Mm-hmm.
I pretty much have calls from headhunters, at
Okay.
least 2 or 3 of them each month,
Oh, wow.
simply because there aren't that many people who has actually shown experience in
Yeah.
managing large scale projects. I mean, if you want to construct a building, would you hire a fresh graduate to do that? No, likely not. The problem is all the other guys are swamped
Yeah.
because when they start building a building, it's not just one. Nobody just built one building. They built a huge apartment blocks. So the
Yeah.
number of people that needs to be there doing the project is huge. Same thing with my job. There aren't, so at any one time, a professional project manager manages 5 to 7 projects at any one
Oh,
time.
okay.
Yes, it is pretty
That's a lot.
normal. It's normal in the
Yeah.
industry. So, so there will, and obviously after doing it for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, many of them do get burned out.
Yeah.
And they said, I'm not going to do this anymore. It's too stressful. I want to take a break. And obviously, the company will start looking for, okay, who's going to be the guy who's doing it. So
Yeah.
PMI actually tells you that there will be how many thousand and how many thousand of jobs available. Number one, because of new projects. You think about it. Every time there's a new iPhone, there are
Mhm.
somebody who has to lead that project. Every time there's a new product in the market, you see there are thousands and thousands of new products coming into the market.
Yeah.
And not only that, you also see government, you also see infrastructure, you see bridges being built. Someone has to lead the project to do that. If that's if that guy is in his 50s or 60s, well, it's a matter of time before he says, I quit because he can't handle it anymore. So
Mhm.
a part a part of the reason is that number one, there are many new products coming to the market. And number two, there are a lot of old folks retiring from the profession
Mhm.
because they simply can't take it anymore. So
Yeah.
one of the things also is that what I wanted to say about project management is that this is one of those things you can't outsource to AI. You can't
Mhm.
do it
Mhm.
because, and the reason why you can't do it, because 70% of them fail. You give it
Mhm.
to AI, it's gonna fail, and what's it gonna do? Tells you that it can't function, you can't reboot the whole thing and say and make sure that things will be back as normal. It doesn't work that way. You actually have to figure out and resolve the problem and then move on. So
Yeah.
that is why I think project management, until today, I'm still receiving messages from LinkedIn saying that,
Top buffers.
please join us. It's like, no, I'm happy where I am.
Oh, well, yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, like you mentioned about AI and how there's no way that I could do that type of work. And yeah, that's interesting about how, yeah, there's always job offers for project management. So while project management principles can be applied across various industries, are there specific domains you think your book caters to more, or is it designed to be universally applicable?
So one of the things that I did in my course is that even though when I started off, my boss assigned me to teach to engineers because he wanted to do continuous improvement. He wanted to do value engineering. He wanted to
Yeah.
cost reduction.
Uh-huh.
So for the first few years, I actually listened to him. I was obedient. Really, I was obedient. After a while, I realized, you know what? I don't want to be talking about engineering anymore because it's so boring. Nobody comes in there and start. So what I did is I gave examples of how I bring up my kids. And I actually sent out a questionnaire saying that please come with a project in mind. It's 2 days, but we think we can do something with it. And many of them responded. So for me personally, what I did is I conducted a project review of
Mhm.
how I brought up my kids.
Okay.
So interestingly, my kids didn't do too badly. So as you know, Singapore is probably one of the craziest countries in the world. It's pretty much ranked pretty much on top of the assessment for students. And then, so my kids got into the gifted education program. They are ranked in the top 1% of
Oh, wow.
students. And then they got
Whoa.
into Raffles, into institutions, supposedly one of the top feeder schools to Oxbridge.
Oh,
And
wow.
then my girl got into Waseda, which is supposedly the number one school in Japan. And my son got into Imperial College.
That's
Uh,
amazing.
so yeah, so one of the things, so obviously there was some curiosity of the people. And then I told him, I actually use project management in order to chart the path where their path is. And if you really, really think about it, I'm not sure whether you've read the book by Richard Williams. He has a movie called King Richard. He is the
Oh,
father
yeah.
of
Yeah.
Venus and Serena.
Yeah.
And it is very interesting. In his book, he actually said he has a 300-page plan
Oh.
how to bring up Venus and Serena. Obviously, he's from Compton, not
Hmm.
exactly the best neighborhood in the US, but through sheer effort, through sheer planning, he actually brought up Venus and Serena. And look at where Venus is
Yeah.
right now. Look where Serena is
Yeah.
right now. So
Oh, wow.
if you really think about it, he actually had a project in mind when he brought up his two daughters. So I use that example and says that, you know what, you can apply project management into anything. So
Yeah.
there are people who came in and says, I want to use it to apply for my business. I want to start a business, small little business, soap making business. And few months down the road, this lady told me, you know what? I've earned enough to quit my job. She didn't,
Mhm.
obviously. She just said, well, spend extra spending money. Why not?
Mhm. Yeah.
There are some who actually said that I want to use project management skills to allow her to get more sleep because she is not able to sleep at night. So I said,
Mhm.
okay, let's tackle this problem through the skills, through the methods of project management and see what we can do. Another lady also said, I wanted to do a bike ride from Singapore all the way to China, not a short journey. And she said, let's talk about how we can use project management. Think about your business case. Think about how you're going to do your initiation. Think about your budget. Think about how you're going to plan to make sure that you start your journey healthy. And then when you reach China, you'll still be able to walk or do crazy things. So,
Yeah.
so those are the things. So after that, then project management became more fulfilling because it is not just
Yeah.
work-related stuff. It is more towards how is this going to affect your life? Think
Yeah.
of it.
Wow. Yeah. I'm so like intrigued now because, yeah, like when I think of project management, I just think about, the professional business world and not like personal goals. That is so interesting about project management as far as like raising kids and their educational plans. Can you go a little bit into like what that looks like as far as like you mentioned King Richard and you raising your kids and their
Mhm.
educational paths? Can you go a little bit into just because I'm curious about how project management looks like for a parent and what things you put into it and how that works?
Interestingly enough, I have been asked to write a second book on how
Yeah,
do I go about doing this. And I
that's an
use,
incredible idea. Like I'm a mother of a 2-year-old, but I mean
Mhm.
still like I find it so intriguing.
Yeah. So one of the things I was actually doing is I chart. Obviously, there's a lot of research that you need to go on. Same thing like project management, you actually have to do a lot of research. So what happens in the early ages? Age one, what are you going to do? What are you expecting that the child will do? What do experts say? And then age two, age three, if you are a parent, the craziest time is actually between ages 3 and 6, the
Right.
preschool years. Yes. So you're almost there.
I'm
Okay.
almost there.
You're almost there. So between the ages of 3 to 6,
Yeah.
that's where the kid basically knows what they want. They can manipulate the parents to do what they want. You know, they are not just dumb kids. Trust me, they are not dumb
Yeah.
kids. They know what they want and they
Yeah.
are able to tell you if they like something, if they don't like something. And also, their motor skills have reached a point of time where you can actually see what they are good at.
Okay.
Obviously, some people are good in certain things, but it is your job as a parent to figure out what that is. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what, so in terms of, so in my second book, I actually used two examples. One of them is actually by this guy called Laszlo Polgar. I'm not sure about whether you have heard of him. He is a parent of the Polgar sisters. Polgar sisters, if you actually look Polgar, they are pretty much one of the first female grandmasters in chess.
Oh
It's
my
crazy.
God.
Yes.
Wow.
And the funny thing is, he actually, between ages of 3 and 6, he actually had many things. He wanted them to learn languages. He wanted to learn to do a lot of things. But in the end, he chose the absolute most boring thing in the world that I think you can actually teach kids, which is chess. But amazingly enough, those three girls that he had absolutely excelled. They became grandmasters. Some of them became international masters. Read up
Wow.
their stories, and he actually wrote a book. I can't remember the exact name, but it actually outlines how he taught his three daughters. And again, this is exactly like project management,
Yeah.
exactly the same. So
Wow.
between the age of 3 and 6, what I would suggest is that so you have your nursery, you have your K1, you have your K2, but
Mm-hmm.
that's usually only for a few hours. The rest of the time, that's where you start enrolling them into different things. For example, ballet, gymnastics, swimming.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they could show that they have a talent somewhere around there, then it's time for you as a parent to decide, you know, how much money am I going to pump in to guide my kids so that they can become the next Olympian, the
Mm-hmm.
next, and it is more often, and here's the funny thing, what I found out in project management is that you actually need to, as long as you put in the effort, even if you don't become an Olympian, even if you don't become a world-class superstar, the fact that you are good in something,
Mm-hmm.
you will
Oh,
actually do well in school, in high school,
yeah.
because you tend to get more popular because you are good at something,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's in soccer, whether you're in baseball, it is the sports star, it is the ballet artist, it is the musician who
Mm-hmm.
gets to have friends, more
Mm-hmm.
friends compared to the guy who has absolutely no interest in life. So,
Yeah.
so so I actually use that example and says, you know, there's no reason for you not to do it because as long as you can learn a particular skill and that skill you will be able to find friends that is able to help you to develop that skill. You'll be able to find teachers. And then when you go to school, you will have a lot easier time because you have
Yeah.
friends who have the same interest. And I tell you, it is so easy to make friends once you have a certain skill.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's so cool. Well, I'm very excited about your second book then. Well, let's go back to the first one.
Mm.
So let's talk about the industries and how they're changing and the nature of industries and technology. So, how do you see the roles of project management changing in the future, and how does your book touch on how to adapt to shifts and these types of scenarios and things?
Despite what people are saying that there are changes, so there has been a lot of people who actually says, okay, there is a new methodology called Scrum. There's a new methodology called Agile. But interestingly enough, when you start talking to them and they said, and you ask, what do you really want? And most managers will just say, oh, I just need you to make sure that my project is on budget, it is
Yeah.
on schedule, and it works. So it's
Okay.
like, so why do you need Scrum? Why do you need Agile? It's just because I think it will help. Not really. You just need to make sure that people know what they're doing and then proceed from there. So while it is good, it is
Yeah.
sexy to say that,
Yeah.
oh, I am an agile
New.
practitioner. I am a scrum practitioner. But if you really, really take a look at it, at the gist, at the basics of it, basically what you're still doing is to make sure that you are doing project management. The only difference is that right now the industry is moving so fast.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And here's the beautiful thing. When it moves that fast, it means there are more projects coming along.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it used to be there's one iPhone every a few years. Now there's one iPhone every year. Next,
And
there's two iPhones every year. And then
yeah.
AI, look at what things are doing. So it's the same thing. So instead of it longer, now it becomes a shorter cycle time. That means more work, more
Yeah.
products,
More projects.
more jobs.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we talked about the inspiration for your book. When did you start writing and what were the beginning stages like?
It's simple. You just have to sit down on your butt and start writing. Yeah, so that's the gist of it. So the material is already there.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I started off was that I asked a college student that I know who was doing his final year project in his senior year. So I asked him, so how's it going with the final year project? And he said he has no guidance. So I said, yeah, so it's kind of sad because, and
Yeah.
I remember when I did my final year project in college, same thing. Every single project professor will actually assume that you know what needs to be done.
Hmm.
So you start doing it and then you learn things along the way. So when I started writing, I actually tell myself, you know what? This is good. I actually have to sit down and start writing. And so what I did is I spent an hour or 2 hours a day doing it. But after a while, it's no longer a chore
Hmm.
because as you see things forming, it becomes something like I can't wait to get back to writing,
Yeah, it
because
kind of
it's
becomes like a
something like that.
habit and just part of your
Yes.
routine. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So the only difference is, of course, I'm also juggling by full-time work and
Yeah.
writing at the same time. And one of the things is also that English is not exactly my first language. It's the language I use the most right now because of work, but it
Yeah.
wasn't. So it took me a while to actually write, but it's okay. I just have to sit down and write.
Yeah. And how long did it take you to write it?
The writing itself took about 6 months.
Okay.
The
Wow.
Yeah, the editing itself took a lot longer
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
the more you read what I wrote, the more I dislike what I wrote.
Oh,
So
really? Like
yeah,
going
so it's
back
like,
and
yeah, because it's like I could have written better. I could have done this better. I could have done this better. So
yeah.
I think it's the same thing with programming. Most people are able to complete a full software programming in probably a few weeks. It is the debugging that is
Yeah.
taking more time. So it's the
Hmm.
same thing with the book. I find editing much more painful than writing.
Yeah. And have you had any writing experience previously?
This is my
Yeah.
first book.
Oh,
Yes.
wow. Okay. And have you ever liked writing or anything growing up, or was this like a huge like moment
Um,
for you?
I actually wasn't a bad student in school. So I grew up in Malaysia,
Okay.
where most of the syllabus is actually in a different language. It's in a
Hmm.
Malay language. Then, when I was 18, my dad actually sent me to the US for college.
Oh,
It's
wow. Okay.
nuts.
Where'd you
Yes.
go?
So Iowa State.
Okay. Nice.
Yes, I was there when I was in the same graduating class as Fred Hoiberg, who later became the coach of the Bulls. So
Oh, crazy.
yes, yes.
Cool.
So it's kind of interesting. So
Yeah.
those were the fun times because I still
Yeah.
remember my college days. Michael Jordan was still wearing number 23 and we were watching
Oh
him.
my gosh.
Yes. So those
That's
were
so cool.
those were the crazy times. I remember my English class because I was from Malaysia.
Hmm.
When you go to school in the US, I think everybody has to take English class. I was the only one who got an A. And I actually asked the professor, it's like,
Really?
what's going on? Is there a mistake? It's like, no, you did it. It was like, oh, okay. So maybe my writing and the
Wow. Yeah.
language could be different. I don't know. Yeah.
Oh,
But I've always enjoyed writing. It
that's
is just that I think some people think that my math skills may be better, my engineering skills may be better. So,
cool.
but I've always enjoyed writing. It's just that the big question is always how are you going to spend time doing this versus that?
Yeah.
That's always the question.
Challenge. Yeah. And can you share any anecdotes of your writing experience with us? Like, what was your writing process like, or was there anything that you did for your writing experience to progress your book?
So my course is mainly consists of slides.
Okay.
So basically what I'm doing is basically to translate the
Yeah.
slides into actual words. The
Hmm.
one portion that I need to do research on, and that is on this part where I've always wanted to do as part of the course, but I never get the chance to do it because it
Oh,
is only 2 days. And that
yeah.
portion, which I really, really enjoyed, was
Hmm.
to talk about the skills of the project manager, where I
Hmm.
talk about leadership, where I talk about building teams and how the project manager needs to adapt his leadership style to cater to the team. So it's kind of interesting because I didn't get the chance to be able to teach that in class.
In class.
So yeah, so right now, whenever I teach the class, I actually conduct 2 classes each year in my company. I will actually say that I'm going to give to every single participant a PDF copy of my book. Go
Oh,
there and read, and please read especially the portion of the skills of a project manager because you will greatly. And I even talk, and there's this portion, I even talk about emotional quotient, EQ of a person, and what. And I like this quote. from a professor where she says that 90% of people who thinks they have good EQ doesn't exactly know what EQ is, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
funny. Was there a difficult part of writing? You said obviously that the research had already been done. Did you find that there was a difficult part of the process, or was it all pretty straightforward? Because you got it done pretty
The
fast.
Again, I make it a point not to have my book to be 500 pages.
Right, yeah. Want to
I
add
can
more.
absolutely
Yeah,
understand why professors write 500 pages because they have so much to say. They have
yeah,
many professors who write books. They have probably have 20 years, 30 years of experience teaching. They
yeah.
have plenty to say. So I was telling myself, I shouldn't be writing so much.
Do the
So
opposite.
I, yes, I said, if I'm going to write that much, people are going to be bored to death because that's not going to allow them. Because if you
Yeah.
write too many stories, if it doesn't make sense,
Mhm.
then people are not interested. So I wanted to make it as compact as possible. And at the same time, I kept on thinking, how should I word some of the things that I said in a better way that it makes it clearer to the
Okay.
reader? Yeah, so
Mhm.
that is the one thing that I have to go back and ask. If I am a fresh college graduate, how would I view this? Because I am not a fresh college graduate. I have
Mhm.
forgotten what it is like to be a high schooler. I've forgotten what it is like to be a fresh grad. So that question is always on
Mhm.
my mind. It's like,
That's good.
how do I do this? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that part was a little bit more difficult because
Yeah.
I forgotten what it is to be a high schooler.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry that it was the most difficult part, but that is honestly like it's great to be mindful of that type of like reader's mind. And as far as writing any type of book, right? Fiction, nonfiction, I feel like that's a really important thing to do is always like put yourself in the writer's shoes and like how they will perceive it. And that's I feel like it gets lost in like a textbook type of material like
Mhm.
you were mentioning about
Yes.
just throwing a bunch of stuff together and like whether that they've had so much experience, it's great that they can put everything in one spot, but at the same time
Mhm.
it's not like super strategic and realistic for
Mhm.
the reader. So that's
Mhm.
great that you're aware of that. What has been like the nicest feedback or review you've received about your book and its message? Have you gotten any feedback from your students?
Most of them like what they read. They said that the graphs are perfect because it's you can focus on writing, but if you don't show them what you're really wanting to do, then it is less clear.
Okay.
I think one of the greatest feedback that I got, and this is not from a student, I actually asked my son to read the book
Ask you
while he,
if family or friends had said anything too.
not so much why, because I have an intention in mind. He is actually attending his interview for Imperial College. So obviously, when you need to go to, for whatever reason, I don't know why, the top colleges always want interviews with students. It's like,
Yeah.
how can a college professor interview a college high schooler and expect him to do well? How
Yeah.
do they choose? Because these are dumb high school kids. They don't
Yeah.
know
I
anything.
can imagine.
So one of the things I asked him to read, and you know what came up? Is like, how do you motivate people? I was like, how do you ask a high school kid, how do you
Yeah.
motivate people? It doesn't work. So, and the beautiful part of this is that I actually have a section on my book that actually teaches you motivation. And motivation is actually very simple. If you think about it, so, and I quote this example in the book, think about gambling, think about Vegas.
Mhm.
Okay, no one can deny that the most motivated people are the gamblers. Why? It's very simple. There is little effort, maximum profits if you're
Mhm.
lucky. You think about it. So how do you motivate people? Simple. Don't ask them to do work, but give them a high value things. It's exactly like belling. And the other thing is
Mhm.
don't allow them to be distracted. And then don't have them wait too long to get. So those are the four things. So the equation is motivation, it is the value, the perceived value, and the amount of effort. Okay.
Okay.
And then if you reduce it by don't give them too much time, and then you don't make them distracted. So you think about it, when you go to Vegas, what do they do for you? They give you drink. They said as long as you stay inside the casino, you don't have
Yep.
to use the bathroom, you will be okay. And then they tell you, okay, you just need to pull a few times, you'll get $1 million. It's okay. So obviously, and you don't need to use a lot of effort. All you need to do is to put the chips at one corner and you will be rich. Of course, the gamblers get motivated.
Mm-hmm.
So the same thing. So I told my son, he's like, you read this, and that's what he did. So he answered, in order for you to be motivated, you have to do this, do this, do this. And interestingly enough, I think he got in. So that is so that was I was when he told me about it, I was like, bam, that's
Yeah.
great.
Oh
Jackpot.
my goodness. I know if a high schooler told me that as a professor, I'd be like, wow, he is on to something.
Yes.
That's great. Even that little section that you're talking about motivation in your book is just already incredible. Like, I mean, people find yeah, like you said, people just want to know like how to get motivation, and just listening to you talk about it is like very inspiring on top of the entire subject in itself. What advice would you give to a writer working on his or her first book?
Ah, tough. Um, Need to know what I think one of the things that motivated me is that you want to write a book that will help someone. So
Mm,
that is the most important thing, such that the person who reads your book, after he reads the book, he will come out a better person. So I
mm,
think that is what motivated me for writing, because I don't want to write a book to waste your time. If you're gonna spend time reading my book rather than looking at Facebook, rather than
yeah,
looking at your Instagram, it
mhm,
better be that you get some benefit out of it. That's the
mhm,
first thing. Yeah, so that's what I would advise if you are in. And the second advice that I got is that need to have a target audience. I wouldn't want to be able, so I wouldn't say that this project management is for everyone. It's not, obviously, it's not for kids, but I want to have a target between high schooler to the fresh college graduate. Maybe after you're working for a few years, maybe
mhm.
that's about it. But after that, maybe you don't find the book too useful anymore, because rightfully you should know how to motivate your team. Yeah. So I craft it. So two things, number one, I want it to be beneficial to the reader. And number
Yeah,
two, I want to have a target audience.
that's
So
great. Yeah,
if as long
very
as I'm able to fit that, I think you will do well.
yeah. Do you have any personal or professional book goals for the remainder of the year going into 2025?
Well, as I mentioned just now, I'm actually working on a second book,
Yeah.
because again, that's by popular request. Because so that was the example I actually shared during my class, and people will keep on asking me, "Oh, you should be doing this. You should be doing this." I was, okay, now I have to actually sit down
Yeah.
and really,
Do
really
another
spend
one.
time writing, rather than doing all the other stuff.
Yeah.
Well, my job is kind of giving me a lot of crazy times, because again, it's Q4, so we will
Mhm.
see. But I'm hoping to complete it in 2025.
Awesome. Well, one last question. What do you hope to achieve with your book, and what message or inspiration do you want readers to take away from after finishing it?
I would say that figure out where you want to go,
Mhm.
because like what the cat says in Alice in Wonderland, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. But if you are
Mhm.
able to figure out the road, then project management will be the car or the vehicle that will be able to get you there. So
Mhm.
find out where you want to go, and then read the book, get the skills, and good luck.
Okay. Well, I think that's all our interview we have today. Is there anything else that you would like to mention to whoever's watching or listening, Wei Kwan?
Exactly what I said. Good luck in all your ventures, all your hopes and dreams come true, and hopefully the book will be a valuable resource in helping you achieve your goals.
Good. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on Author Roundup. I have found your book extremely intriguing, and the subject matter is really great. And I feel like this book is perfect for a lot of people in the workforce and how to manage projects. And I'm really looking forward to your second book. That one, it will be great. I'm very excited about that. So I want to say good luck to you. If you're interested in his book, head to partridgepublishing.com through our online bookstore, where it's available in softcover, hardcover, and even ebook. His book is also available on Amazon and even Barnes & Noble. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I will see you next time.